Egypt and Qatar remove barriers, advance ceasefire, and prepare aid for Gaza entry. Jordan's king rejects land annexation and urges a ceasefire in a phone call with the French president. And Hamas reaffirms commitment to ceasefire, detainee exchange, and urgent aid delivery. Hello there, it's 4 o'clock Cairo local time and you're watching Q News. And we start today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. An official Egyptian source has confirmed that Egypt and Qatar have successfully removed barriers to advancing the Gaza ceasefire agreement. This comes as both sides remain dedicated to ensuring the full implementation of the truce, reflecting a unified effort to stabilize the region and ease tensions. At the same time, Egyptian Qatari aid, including mobile homes, debris removal equipment, and relief and humanitarian supplies, is being prepared in anticipation of its entry into the Gaza Strip. Dozens of trucks carrying mobile homes have lined up on the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing, preparing to enter Gaza. Alongside the trucks carrying mobile homes, several pieces of heavy equipment have been positioned on the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing in preparation for entering the Gaza Strip. This comes as a total of 266 aid trucks, including 22 fuel trucks, have entered the Kerem Abu Salem and Al Auja border crossings today, also in preparation for entry into the Gaza Strip. Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has reaffirmed Egypt's commitment to fully implementing the ceasefire agreement and alleviating the suffering of Gaza's residents by facilitating humanitarian aid in coordination with international partners. During a weekly government meeting, Madbouli emphasized the Egyptian president's efforts to engage world leaders and international organizations in stabilizing the situation, ensuring reconstruction and rejecting the forced displacement of Palestinians. Egypt also announced that it will host an urgent Arab summit on February the 27th. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdul Ati and Bahraini Foreign Minister Abdul Atif al-Zayani emphasized the need for a just and lasting political solution to the Palestinian cause through a two-state solution. The two counterparts also discussed the establishment of an independent Palestinian state along the June 4, 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. During their meeting in Paris, the ministers praised Egypt-Bahrain ties, addressed regional developments, and stressed the importance of Gaza's reconstruction while rejecting the displacement of Palestinians. King Abdullah II of Jordan has reiterated his country's firm rejection of any attempts to annex land or displace Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. In a call with French President Emmanuel Macron, Jordan's king emphasized the need to halt settlement activities, maintain a ceasefire in Gaza, and achieve a two-state solution with an independent Palestinian state based on 1967 borders. Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to implementing the ceasefire agreement, including the detainee exchange within the agreed timeline. Their delegation engaged with mediators, Egyptian and Qatari officials, and technical teams to ensure progress. Discussions focused on urgent actions such as delivering prefabricated homes, tents, medical supplies, heavy equipment, and fuel, while stressing the importance of adhering to all terms of the agreement. Now, for more on this, we cross over to Selma, who is in our newsroom. Selma.
Thank you, Mark. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor, Ashraf Al-Ashri. Mr. Ashraf, thank you so much for joining us on Qnews. And first off, Egypt and Qatar have intensified their diplomatic efforts to salvage the Gaza ceasefire deal. How did they do this? How did they overcome the barriers to advancing the Gaza ceasefire agreement?
Of course, during the past few days and even today morning, Egypt has negotiated with the Hamas delegation who visited Egypt. These negotiations between Hamas and Cairo discussed the different new approaches that might lead to solving the obstacles in the light of the Israeli restrictions regarding giving access to humanitarian aid and transferring the injured from Gaza to Cairo to receive treatment. Here came the coordination with Qatar and the US to prevail the state of calmness to achieve the first phase of the ceasefire agreement. Here Egypt took advantage of its relation with Hamas and US to practice pressure to solve the excuses Israel is making to obstacle the humanitarian aid access to the Gaza Strip, including the tents and camps, and to allow a large number of injured Gazans to be transferred into Egypt to receive treatment. Israel has been exerting all efforts possible to achieve the Trump's threat on Saturday to open the doors of hell if they do not release the hostages. With the coordination with Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy to the Middle East, we have reached a consensus to release the 3 hostages by Hamas. Egypt released a press release, and as well as Hamas to release the 3 Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian detainees from Israeli prisons in 2 p.m. on Saturday.
Now, in light of the humanitarian aid, mobile homes are currently en route to Gaza. And if you can expand more on the type of humanitarian supplies that are being lined up at the Rafah border crossing currently.
Of course, there are a lot of humanitarian aid provided by Egypt and others by the United Nations, a lot of food, water, in addition to oil and petroleum to operate the electricity plants and hospitals, the sanitation plants, and as well as the electricity generators in Gaza, because most places are heavily destructed, such as the north and the center. A lot of different kinds of tents and camps and mobile homes to provide residential places to the Palestinians, in addition to mobile homes that will play an integral role to provide prevention and protection to the Palestinians on different rounds. The first round of mobile homes will be entered today after the Israeli rejection to give access to these mobile homes for 25 days. This will requires a power to respect the humanitarian protocol signed in Doha to enter large amounts of mobile homes. You know, there are tens of thousands of captives this winter under the heavy rains that Gaza is witnessing right now. So it's a must to enter these mobile homes and trucks carrying strong tents to protect the Palestinian population from the rain and the cold in these critical times.
Now, in light of the upcoming Arab summit to be held in Cairo on the 27th of this month, what role will it play in addressing the situation in Gaza?
Of course, this summit will handle will not handle the negotiations of Egypt and Doha. These negotiations are only about the two mediators in addition to the United States. The agenda will tackle first rejecting the scheme to displace the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip and to form a barrier to prevent any kind of relocation and form a united front by Egypt, Jordan and other Arab nations to reject the Trump scheme even inside the United States and Israel. And I think Israeli leadership expressed that these schemes are mere imagination and fictional ideas. That's why we are going to coordinate with the international community for a unified front to face this proposition. The second item on the agenda will be turned into an Arab initiative for the Gaza reconstruction and forming a fund for the Gaza reconstruction. Egypt has a great plan, as stated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs the day before yesterday. The plan includes 3 to 5 years, and there will be reconstruction efforts starting from Palestinian Rafah, going through center and then the north, which will require an international conference which is being planned by Egypt in coordination with the Arab nations, and inviting also members from the international community, including China and Russia, to have a rejecting position to the Trump proposition and forming an Arab, Egyptian and international power to reject the idea of relocating the Gazan population, in addition to the settlement for a peace process in the second day after the truce's completion. These are the three items on the summit agenda.
Now, Mr. Ashraf, the foreign ministers of Egypt and Bahrain have met in Paris and they discussed the arrangements of the upcoming Arab summit to be held this month. What were the key outcomes of these discussions?
This was a very important meeting because Bahrain was head of the plenary Arab League session that is to be held next April in Iraq. But this is an emergency summit, which was an area of discussion between Cairo and Manama to discuss extending invitations to different Arab nations and setting the items of the agenda. And there will be a preparatory meeting for Arab ministers of foreign affairs to agree on the agenda item. It will be It was a coordinating meeting to coordinate the proceedings of the next Arab summit, as well as the Islamic summit after this one, to create a momentum to support the Egyptian Jordanian stance rejecting the relocation. And I think this coordination will continue till the convening of this conference to provide a momentum and an Arab pressure to force the US and Israeli to give up on this proposition to relocate the Gazan population, because it's never can take place. The outcomes will be, most prominent of the outcomes will be rejecting the Trump proposition and the Gaza reconstruction in coordination with the United Nations and the Arab League.
Now, speaking of the Jordanian stance, how does Jordan's rejection of land annexation and Palestinian displacement further the collective Arab stance against these issues?
Of course, the Jordanian stance is unwavering since day one. When Trump proposed the relocation, he chose Egypt and Jordan as neighboring countries to the Palestinian lands. The Jordanian stance is the same as the Egyptian. They have the same outcomes, the same positions, the same political statements, and the same type of coordination. There were communications between the President Sisi and King Abdullah of Jordan to reject any kind of displacement. The Trump position is rejected, and this rejection will be activated in the next Arab summit to be held in Cairo. Jordan rejects any kind of displacement for Palestinians, and there were demonstrations to welcome King Abdullah, which is the same position, who adopts the same position as President Sisi, to reach a peace settlement for the Palestinian cause and reject any type of annexation or to kill the Palestinian cause. The Trump's idea is a dream that will never come true.
From Cairo, that was Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor Ashraf Al-Ashri. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News and for all the information you provided us with. And now we're going to move back to Mark in the studio.
Thank you very much, Selma. Thank you indeed. Now, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has urgently called for international action to stop the Israeli crimes in the West Bank. It highlighted the forced displacement of over 30,000 Palestinians and the ongoing destruction of infrastructure, demolition of homes, and alteration of Palestinian camp landscapes. The ministry also emphasized that international silence encourages further Israeli actions of ethnic cleansing, displacement, and annexation. UNICEF has condemned the rising violence against children in the West Bank, citing the deaths of 13 Palestinian children in 2023, including a 2.5-year-old. The organization urged an immediate end to the violence, highlighting the damage to infrastructure and essential services in Jenin and other regions. OCHA reports show that 224 children have been killed and 2,500 injured since 2023, marking an alarming trend. Now, let's get the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين. وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بيخوف.
The Lebanese presidency has denied reports of an extension of the ceasefire agreement between Lebanon and Israel beyond Eid after Ramadan. That comes as the fighting ended in late November with a ceasefire brokered by the United States and France, setting a 60-day deadline for Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon, Hezbollah's pullback and the deployment of Lebanese forces. This deadline was extended to February the 18th. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun reaffirmed Lebanon's firm stance on Israel's full withdrawal by the set deadline. Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer has confirmed that Israel will retain 5 high-level strategic points inside Lebanon after the ceasefire deadline next Tuesday, which mandates the withdrawal of all Israeli forces. While the Israeli minister refused to disclose the expected duration of the Israeli forces' stay at these sites, he indicated that the forces would not be withdrawn in the near future, threatening the ceasefire agreement, which stipulates the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanese territory by February the 18th. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdul Ati has affirmed Egypt's readiness to support Lebanon in safeguarding its sovereignty, unity and stability while advancing its national priorities. Meeting his Lebanese counterpart, Youssef Raji, in Paris during a ministerial conference on Syria, Abdul Ati praised Lebanon's new government as a key step forward towards stability. He emphasized Egypt's commitment to strengthening bilateral ties and called for the full implementation of UN Resolution 1701 and Israel's withdrawal from southern Lebanon. Now let's get the latest developments regarding Syria. So, as we've been hearing, Paris is hosting an international conference today on Syria. The conference aims to coordinate regional and international efforts to support Syria's transitional phase and foster an inclusive political process that ensures the preservation of Syria's stability, unity, security and sovereignty.
Va nous permettre de consolider les éléments de confiance de l'intelligence artificielle.
Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdul Ati has travelled to Paris to attend the ministerial meeting on Syria hosted by France. The meeting follows previous discussions in Aqaba in December and Riyadh in January 2025, aimed at coordinating regional and international efforts for a political solution in Syria. Abdul Ati is also set to hold bilateral talks with the participating ministers. The UK has announced plans to amend sanctions on Syria following the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime late last year, while maintaining asset freezes and travel bans on former regime figures. Minister Stephen Doughty stated that the changes aim to support Syrians in rebuilding their nation and ensuring stability, while reaffirming the government's commitment to holding al-Assad and his allies accountable. Syria's Foreign Minister Assad al-Shibani has highlighted the political challenges facing the country and emphasized the need to strengthen regional ties. Speaking at the World Government Summit in Dubai, he called for lifting economic sanctions imposed, asserting that this would promote security and stability. Al-Shibani noted that Syrian people's active participation in the current political process, emphasizing their essential role in driving meaningful change. According to reports from the Israeli military, Israel has established a security zone in Syrian territory, constructing 9 military sites within the area. The Israeli government has announced plans to maintain this security presence throughout 2025, with no set time for withdrawal. Ukraine now, where President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Ukraine plans to exchange the Russian-held Kursk region for part of its own territory. Zelensky warned that if US President Donald Trump were to halt support for Ukraine, Europe would not be able to fill the gap on its own.
Україні потрібен реальний, тривалий і гарантований мир. І засоби.
The Kremlin has said that Russia will never discuss trading the Ukrainian territory it controls for areas in Russia's western Kursk region held by Kyiv. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that Russian forces would drive Ukrainian troops out of Kursk, where Kyiv launched a swift incursion last August, seizing chunks of territory. Ukrainian President Zelensky told The Guardian that he plans to propose a direct territory exchange to help end the war, including offering areas of Kursk currently held by Ukraine. And that's almost all we have time for. Here's a recap of the headlines. Egypt and Qatar remove barriers, advance ceasefire and prepare aid for Gaza entry. Jordan's king rejects land annexation and urges a ceasefire in a phone call with the French president. And Hamas reaffirms commitment to ceasefire, detainee exchange and urgent aid delivery. Well, that's all for now, but don't forget you can follow us on whatever social media platform you choose to, or all of them. YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok, of course, at Qnews EGY, and that is where you can stay informed. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.